Hi and welcome to today's event where we have the pleasure to present ExpreS2ion Biotechnologies. To help us through the presentation, we have CEO Bent Frandsen and CFO Keith Alexander. The reason or the purpose of this event is, firstly, actually to go through the right issue, preferred right issue, guaranteed issue that you are having right now, the purpose, what the investment case is shortly, and then the nuts and bolts for private investors, as it is a special one, both a guaranteed one and a preferred right issue. So what can you do as an investor, and what steps do you need to take? So that we will also go a little bit more into detail and use some of the event on. As always, ask questions in the right hand box down there. Do it through the presentation. I will see if it fits in, but we probably will take most of the questions in the end. But do not hesitate to ask through the presentation when something comes to you. But Ben, for now, I think I will hand the call over to you.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you everybody participating here. My name is Bent Frandsen. I'm the CEO of ExpreS2ion Biotech, and with me I have Keith Alexander, our CFO, and we'll go through a brief slide deck presentation where I'll cover the first part and Keith will cover the latter part. And the reason behind this, as Michael alluded to, is that we are currently in a process of raising 73 million SEK in a rights issue. And you can ask, what's the reason or purpose behind this, since we have a very strong cash position that we have highlighted at the end of 2021, which can take us into 2023. And the fact that we have in our pipeline a phase 3 ready COVID vaccine project, which is sponsored by Bavarian Nordic and moving onwards. However, the potential cash inflow from this project we would expect later in 2023, and we're going to incur some significant cost on our breast cancer vaccine project, the ES2B-C001 project. And we don't want to end up in a situation where we're just short of cash for that purpose. So the management and the board have been in discussion about ensuring the company's business progression, and the board of directors has decided for the rights issue on that background. Of course, at the moment there's an uncertain financial market. However, in any case, it's the board's opinion, and I second that raising capital is best when you're actually in a strong cash position than in a weak one. Let me spend some minutes on some slides that we have also presented to those who have actually secured this rights issues. First of all, the investment highlights here. We are a pipeline-focused company. We have a very strong pipeline making therapeutic and preventive vaccines within infectious diseases and cancer. And on top of that, we have our legacy business, our contract research organization, which has actually generated 60 million SEK since we did our public listing back in 2016. Our technologies at hand are quite strong. We have a vaccine development platform that we have used since we started our operations in 2010 to produce complex proteins for vaccine applications primarily. We've made more than 500 proteins with a very high success rate if you can compare with other protein production systems. And we are addressing the global vaccine market, which obviously has increased incredibly the last 2 years due to the COVID-19, and currently has a value estimated at $190 billion. And we actually, as you know, in the COVID-19 field, where we have a phase 3 ready project, which is going to start the phase 3 trial this quarter, the second quarter of 2022, and moving into a commercial setting later in 2023 if the exclusive licensee Bavarian Nordic they can get there. Our business model is twofold, still based on our own ExpreS platform, where we can make proteins for vaccine purposes. On one side, we develop a pipeline, our own products, where the aim is to take these onwards to human clinical proof of concept, and then do partnerships to ensure commercialization of these assets. On the other side, we have our contract research organization, where we make service activities for clients, and these are both big pharma as well as academic institutions, which basically place work orders with us to make complex proteins for research purposes. On the one side, we have a technology that we call ExpreS. You know, the S2 is from the application of Drosophila Snyder2 insect cells. We have a patented vector system here that can make complex proteins using these cells, and we've done this numerous times since we initiated our business in 2010. On the other side, we have the particle technology, the virus-like particle technology, also called the VLP technology, which is essentially a super glue system that can attach any protein of interest on the surface of a capsid virus-like particle, and thereby getting a highly potential immunogenic vaccine. So these technologies come with some key advantages. On the one side, our ExpreS technology can actually do quite rapid production of proteins of interest in just 3 to 6 months with high yields, and also importantly, a high and consistent high quality manufacturing output. On the other side, the VLP system, this resides in the company AdaptVac, which ExpreS2ion owns 34% of. This technology can actually work with full-length proteins, which is not what other VLP systems can do. And in this system, you can control the attachment on the surface of the capsid virus-like particle. So you can create a high-density display of proteins and even control the direction of the proteins on the surface, meaning that you can have a highly efficacious, potentially highly immunogenic vaccine with this system. And VLPs have been known commercially. In the lower right, you'll see 2 examples of Gardasil and Savarix, which have combined sales of more than $4 billion per year. They address the human papilloma virus and are blockbusters in their own rights. And coincidentally, the antigens in these vaccines are made in insect cells, other insect cells than ours, and also attached to VLPs other than AdaptVac's VLP. We come with several advantages, as mentioned here, and have actually high ambitions on getting market shares based on these technologies. That's also the backbone for our 2 lead projects, the coronavirus vaccine and the breast cancer vaccine. These 2 projects, they combine the ExpreS-made antigens coupled to the VLP system. Our other pipeline activities in influenza and malaria, here ExpreS2ion, we make the antigens in our ExpreS system, but we don't use the VLP technology in this. Here we apply various adjuvant technologies. And basically, just to highlight here, the coronavirus vaccine project is now approaching phase 3 as we speak. Bavarian Nordic, which is the exclusive licensee, have communicated they initiate the phase 3 trial in this quarter, and they're expecting that it can be completed within 2022 and moving into a commercial setting later in 2023. The breast cancer vaccine project is in preclinical stage. We have just announced here in December and January very strong preclinical proof of concept data, and we are on path to develop this towards the first clinical trial in 2024. And this is a project which is 100% owned by ExpreS2ion, following an exclusive license that we did with AdaptVac in February 2021, and where we spent most of our time and resources, and a very important part of the reasoning behind the current rights issue. Let me give the word to Keith Alexander, who can go through the backbone for the rights issue.
Great, thank you, Bent, and thank you, Michael, and thank you to all the investors who have joined us on the call, many of whom I've been in contact with throughout the process. I'll go over the next few pages, just a few of the key salient details related to the rights issue. First of all, the use of proceeds, which we've broken down into 3 categories. The The first one is to advance our breast cancer vaccine candidate, ES2B-C001, to the point where we've completed the preclinical safety studies. And we estimate that approximately half of the proceeds from the rights issue would go toward that. The second is to advance our other pipeline development projects, including within influenza, malaria, and supporting our strategic CRO business. And that will get about a quarter of the proceeds. And the final is to invest in our core technologies and IP in order to strengthen our competitive edge, which will get the remaining quarter. Looking at the details of the rights issue a bit, the maximum number of new shares to be issued will be approximately 5.8 million. The subscription price is 12.5 Swedish krona per share. Every 8 shares that you currently had as of the record date will entitle you to 3 new rights, and every 2 rights entitles to 1 subscription for 1 new share. The subscription period has already started. It started on April 19th, and it will carry on through May the 3rd, 2022. And finally, the subscription commitments of 2.5% were made by the board and management team and some others. And we have guarantee undertakings, which will guarantee 97.5% of the rights issue. And we're quite proud of that because it can be quite difficult in the current market to get guarantees. So this is a very good achievement on our part. So what to do? And this slide is actually from a page on our website. So you can download this during the call or afterwards if you'd like more information. And basically you have 2 options based on where you have your shares. If you have your shares with an online broker like Avanza or Nordnet, you can go there and you'll find a notice from them instructing you on how to participate in the rights issue. And it's different by every broker, so I encourage you to first check with what you receive from your broker, whether it's Nordnet or Avanza, and try your best to understand it. If there are still questions, then it's best to contact them because we don't have access to the platform that all the brokers are using, and we don't have all the answers, but your brokers should have them. The other option is that you can submit an issue report to Vader Securities, who's handling the transaction on our behalf. That can be found on our website. If you go to the investor section of the website and then under IPO and rights issues, and then the 2022 rights issue, there are 3 subscription forms. And the 3 forms, 2 of them are in Swedish, one's in English. The differences are whether you have rights or don't have rights. And to know whether you should have rights, basically if you were a shareholder on April 13th, then you should have rights. And those preferential rights move you higher up in the rights subscription process. But if you want to use the form, you can find that on our website, fill in your bank information, and then submit it to Vader via email or in the mail. You'll see the instructions on the form. And then you'll see number 2 below, we refer to custody accounts. These are those that you have with a bank, Nordea, Danske Bank, any of the other banks. And basically, it's a pretty similar process. They should have sent you a message. And if you log onto your account, you'll get instructions there on how to subscribe. Again, if you have questions, we recommend reaching out to the bank directly because they will be able to advise you more specifically than we can. In terms of the timetable, as I mentioned before, the subscription period is already ongoing. It's ongoing through the 3rd of May. The subscription rights are trading as their own ticker until the 28th. That's later this week. And then trading in BTAs. So basically what happens is when you subscribe, your rights become BTAs, and then eventually those will become shares. And those are already trading now and will be trading until the new shares are registered with the Swedish Companies Registry Office, also known as Bolagsverket. And then we expect the final outcome on or around the 5th of May. So it's coming up quickly. That's all I have. On our last page, it just tells you how to subscribe to Expression news releases. And we have company announcements, and then we have investor releases, which you subscribe through Cision for. So with that, I'll hand it back to Michael for any Q&A.
Perfect. Let's go to the questions. The first question is here: what is the difference between subscription commitment and guarantee undertakings? I can see that I'm also not quite fully whether I understand the question. So, but there is there's no difference, right? If you can go through the nuts and bolts of it, by these guarantees, what you have guaranteed and the subscription commitments in percentage wise.
Sure. Now the subscription commitments, those are made by the board and management team and certain other investors, and that doesn't fulfill the full rights issue. So yes, it illustrates our commitment and that we're all very much engaged in the company. However, we couldn't possibly commit the full amount of the undertaking. So the guarantee, what that does, it's essentially insurance to ensure that the rights issue is completed at or near the full fundraising amount. And that is for the full amount of the rights issue. Well, I think it's 97.5% of the rights issue.
Yes, and that's a guarantee that they are having, but all existing shareholders' preferential rights will come first, both what they subscribe on the rights and what they might subscribe on their own without the rights. That is correct, right? The shareholders will always stay in front of the guarantees, the guarantee commitment.
That's correct. And to be more specific, the top ranked ones are the ones who had shares as of April 13th. And then there's any investor who would like to subscribe at the subscription price. And then finally, it's the guarantees.
Yeah, perfect. There's a question here. You ask shareholders for more money. How come management doesn't fulfill their own right issue shares 100%? It seems like most of you only subscribe for half of your shares, and in some cases, none at all. Some comments on that, whether you are fulfilling your preferential rights.
Maybe I can address some of that. I think first and foremost, it's a personal commitment, and I don't know about management and board's private finances. So that's a very short answer to that. Nevertheless, I still think at least the chairman of the board and myself, we have actually committed, and that's significant in our own rights.
If going as planned, when is the breast cancer vaccine expected to be fully launched, and how large is the market? And if I might add some questions also regarding, you are now planning to go through the safety study and initiating phase 1 later on. How early on could you get a partner to finance us? I guess it's a part of your business plan. But if you start with this one, we can take the other one.
Sure. Well, first of all, the market is substantial. It's $20 billion on an annual basis, expected to grow to 26 billion in a few years. So it's a high growing market, very much dominated by monoclonal antibodies, which actually come with some disadvantages incurred in terms of the development of resistance among breast cancer patients. And the notion of resistance is actually exactly what we address with our vaccine, and other advantages as well. So we are estimating that we'll move into the first clinical trial in 2024, and that's of course a big step for the project in itself. Moving onwards, the aim of the company is to actually develop until human clinical proof of concept. That would mean including a clinical phase 2 trial, and then move into a partnership scenario from there. That said, of course, with the very strong preclinical proof of concept data that we've just generated, we don't hesitate to discuss with potential partners from early on, because this is a very exciting project, and we want to keep potential interested future partners, keep the dialogue open. So all in all, moving into a commercial setting for the breast cancer vaccine is going to take a long time. Obviously, from clinical phase 1, it can take a year or two to move into clinical phase 2. It can take a year or two to move into or go through the clinical phase 2 if you're that fortunate. And so we're talking further in the future to move into a commercial setting. But I would be focusing on a partnership deal before we get into that.
That is still your main target with this one, to get a partnership deal and let them fund them as not as fast as possible, but at the most optimum time of the value, I guess.
Correct.
It is still, yeah. On the 8th of February, you stated the updated preclinical plans for therapeutic breast cancer vaccine will not have any substantial effect on ExpreS2ion's financial position. Something has changed since that statement, or has it, or is it you who have decided to get more secure about your future financing? I don't know whether you can give some comment on that.
Sure, it's in a way both. In the sense that what we announced on 8th of February was feedback that we got from a meeting we had with the Danish medical agency, DKMA, and the main feedback from meeting with the agency was that we needed to do additional preclinical safety studies, and that takes its time and planning to basically incorporate the needed preclinical studies, and time-wise, we have assessed that we'll get the preclinical safety trials done in the first half of 2023. Cost-wise, we have learned that it's also expensive, but it's just to highlight that we cannot rely on Bavarian Nordic actually being successful with the COVID-19 project, because there may be a potential gap during 2023 where we still need to be able to finance our breast cancer vaccine project through the preclinical stage. That's quite important. So this is really to de-risk our pipeline efforts going forward.
And then there's a question, can you work with Bavarian in other vaccines? Are they moving in also your direction in some parts where it's possible that you can work together with them?
I cannot reply on Bavarian Nordic's behalf. They are a very strong vaccine player with a manufacturing and commercial setup, which is significant. We are a very strong, let's say, research-based company in the vaccine field, and so obviously there are some synergies, but I cannot speculate on priorities on Bavarian Nordic's behalf.
And relating to the COVID-19 vaccine, is there news about the Omicron and coverage around that Omicron? I guess with the flare up in China, what everybody maybe were guessing was happening in this COVID-19 market has changed a little bit.
I think that the disease is still a pandemic. WHO, they're not near to taking that pandemic designation of this disease. And now we see in Asia a surge in COVID-19 cases, and even in China where it all started. So it's going to take a while, and even though we have a fortunate time in most of Europe these months, this is still around, and there's still a requirement for a vaccine which has a long-term potential and an easy handling. It's, the messenger RNA vaccines which are dominating, they need -20 to -80 degrees storage and handling, and ours can be handled at room temperature. So we still come with advantages also in terms of addressing the variants of concern. While there's not been a direct comparison to Omicron, there's been direct comparison to of course the original Wuhan strain and the Beta and Alpha and Delta strains, not least, where our vaccine has worked significantly higher than what you have been able to see with the messenger RNA vaccines. which, by the way, also have not demonstrated any effect of relevance against the Omicron variant. So that's why Bavarian Nordic actually described this as a universal vaccine, and we back that up, of course.
Yeah. So I guess we would also hear it first from Bavarian if there was any news regarding the Omicron. But are you reading it also so that they are going for a universal and the long-term effect as being the parameters than the current you might say variant that is up in the world at current time? I know I'm asking you to speculate on someone else's behalf.
Yes, but it's a good speculation. Yes, that's the short answer.
Okay, good. Have you discussed the possibilities moving from First North? Is that an unspoken goal, to move to main market to attract maybe larger investors? Is that something that is being discussed with the board and the management, between the board and the management?
Yes, I think Keith, you are welcome to reply on this.
Yeah, I hesitate to say anything before something is done, but we're very aware of the advantages and disadvantages of different marketplaces, and we consider it in our long-term strategy.
Yep. How about COVID-19? COVID first phase and first participant. Is the news about duration and resisting over a longer period of time? Has there been more data or metadata that has not been published? I guess not.
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
How about COVID-1 phase and phase 1 participant? Is there news about duration and resisting over a longer period of time? Yes.
Well, the first clinical trial which ExpreS2ion was involved in, this was what was partly financed by an EU grant from the Horizon 2020 program, where 45 healthy volunteers, they underwent this vaccine. That took place in the Netherlands, and this started in Q1 last year in 2021. And the fact is that these healthy volunteers afterwards also have been offered, and it would be ethically incorrect if they were not allowed to take any other vaccines. So they have afterwards actually been vaccinated, even with other vaccines. So there's nothing more coming out of that clinical phase 1 trial.
And it's not quite a question, and you might give some thought about it, and what has hit you and what the value has, of course, decreased. Biotech stock has taken a large hit, but I guess the person here is saying you have decreased even more. Do we have any some comments, something you want to share with shareholders? I know it's kind of a comment, and I understand it from the question, but I don't know whether you have anything to kind of reassure. Or,
well, there's a dip in valuations across all listed companies, it seems, and in our field, even Moderna and BioNTech have had their experience with decreases as well. So it's not what it used to be in 2021. And of course, with what's going on in the world, this also has an effect on the general investor sentiment. What I want to focus on is, of course, our pipeline-driven biotech opportunities, and that we have a high value potential. So I try to stay calm on this.
Perfect. I think that was the last question. Thanks to the listeners for good questions, and thank you to you, Bent and Keith Alexander, for taking us through the presentation and answering the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.